walking around in some kind of fog. I think we're all in a trance. People are talking in symbols. Everyone's sort of floating through this fog of symbols and unconscious feelings. Here's another person who's existing in a dream, taking us into a dream world.
Hello and welcome back to the Lucid Dreaming Podcast. This is episode 11, so let's get started. First, follow-up as usual. Some of you may be curious about my experiment with supplements after the last episode, and what I basically did is I took one specific supplement that's marketed to be able to help or increase the chances or frequency of lucid dreaming and vivid dreams and so on, called Alpha Brain. And what I did was, I planned to take 1 week to 2 to basically try it out and see if there's any difference, any specific effect, any significant changes in lucid dreaming frequency or dream recall or memory or something like that. And unfortunately, I got a little sick during the second week. I don't think it's related to the supplements themselves. Maybe, but I doubt it. So my experiment was cut short. But for the first week, I would say that. And I took it as following their particular instructions, which happened to be, take the supplement 4 to 6 hours before going to sleep, not right before and not during sleep at some point during the night. Unfortunately, and again, it's not a perfect experiment by any means. I am just one person, so it's a very, very small sample that's not really representative. And, there's really no way for me to compare it to a placebo or to anything else. I would say that from my experience so far, at least with this particular supplement in this particular week, there has been no significant changes as far as I can tell. I've had one very brief lucid dream where I became aware, and again, just to phrase the experiment, even though that if supplements do work in helping to increase the chance for lucid dreaming, if they do anything, again, they should go along with an induction technique. But for the experiment, I wanted to try a few times with an induction technique and a few without. I did more without because I really wanted to see just on its own what kind of effect will it have. Because I think, part of the reason is that most people treat or look at supplements as some kind of, this will make me lucid dream, without technique, without effort or something like that. And I wanted to maybe try and show that doesn't really work that way. Now, can I really prove that with an induction technique it does increase the chances as opposed to just the induction technique on its own? It's really hard to do without enough people and enough tries and enough experiments and something to compare it to. And every person is different. I mean, this is really tricky stuff. But hopefully what I'm showing here is that these things are not really magical pills, and that's my conclusion so far, at least from Alpha Brain. And this is not going to be my last experiment. I found another lucid dreaming supplement that seems a lot more formulated and thought out for lucid dreaming, and they seem a little more serious and a little more targeted, and the implementation is different as well. But I'm not gonna mention it yet. I'm actually gonna give that one a try. I'm gonna give my body a week to recover, both from my being sick as well as from the previous supplements, just to give it kind of a clean slate. And I'm gonna try this one as well. But I don't have very high expectations or high hopes. But I'm gonna give it a try, because again, it seems that there are a lot of people are still very interested in it, and there's all this conflicting information, and they are promoted very easily online in various, forums and posts and so on. So I don't know. To conclude my experiment with Alpha Brain, it is my sense, at least not with the way their instructions are, or maybe it's the quantities or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. I don't think Alpha Brain really has a large effect, at least not on me. The one lucid dream that I did have that was very short. As soon as I became lucid, I woke up. And again, might have other reasons for it, but I don't think this was sort of out of the ordinary. I've had, lucid dreams without induction techniques randomly, regardless on just other days. So I don't think this had any effect as far as I can tell. Again, no increased dream recall, no, increased in vivid dreams for my particular experiment and experience. So, it's hard to tell with these things, but I'm going to give the new supplement, which finally arrived. I'm going to give it a try next week, and hopefully I can report something back before the next episode 2 weeks from now, and we'll see how it goes. Who knows? This is why I'm sort of running it as an experiment, but I want to give this warning again. If any of these supplements can work, at least maybe it works for some people and some people it won't. But even for the people that it could work for, the biggest point is, and the biggest reminder I want to give people is, this is to supplement. This is to hopefully, in theory, increase the chances or increase the conditions, improve the conditions of your brain or your brain chemistry or your quality of sleep in such a way that it will give a better baseline or a better chance for lucidity to occur. These things don't induce lucidity as is my point. And the other thing I remembered, I came across an article by Dr. Steven Novella, actually one of my favorite skeptics. He's a host of the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe podcast, and if you like that kind of things, which is has science, updates about science and teaches sort of critical thinking and skepticism. It's very cool. It's not for everybody, but it's very cool. So he writes on a blog or a website called Science-Based Medicine, and he was very critical of some supplements, not regard to lucid dreaming, but happens to be, in particular, he was mentioning Alpha Brain, because Alpha Brain, as I mentioned, is promoted as a supplement for just cognitive enhancement, and only secondarily it's promoted as a lucid dreaming supplement. Regardless, he is pointing out, very logically so, that the claims on Alpha Brain in other supplements that are sold out there today for things like cognitive enhancement and so on are based on research that can be interpreted a little, well, not very accurately sometimes, and that doesn't reflect on normal, healthy people. So the example he gives with Alpha Brain is that they're using, research that was done on people after having trauma, and that increases their, using these particular supplements, or some of the ingredients at least, can help increase their memory and recover their cognitive ability and things like that. But it's no indication that a healthy person will get an increase if taking these supplements. So you see my point. It's that this is where it kind of differs, and there's not enough really good science on these things, and it's a shame. But maybe as more science and scientific research is done on these things, we'll understand them better, and we'll maybe find something that works a little better. But so far, nothing earth-shattering. So, but we'll see. I'm still gonna give it a try. I'm gonna be your guinea pig, so you don't have to. And if you rather, wait, see what I report, see my experience. If you feel that your experience might be different, you are welcome to give things a try, but again, do your research, heed all the warnings, and be careful, because again, I don't think we know quite enough about these things. And even with my own experiments, I'm trying to do it a little more subtle and measured, and not going overboard with anything, definitely not surpassing any instructions on any supplement bottles and so on. So that's the little follow-up about that. And next week I'm gonna follow up a little more with my second experiment, and who knows, I might be surprised. I'm always open to these kinds of things, so we'll see. So one more little update. As usual, more and more little Kickstarters come up, and there's another one for a book about lucid dreaming, and basically it's a translation of the writing of one of the early writers on lucid dreaming. I forget what language it's in, but the Kickstarter basically wants to make a translation of the book and make it available for people in English as well. So I'll put a link in the show notes. It's very cool. Again, I'm always supportive of almost any and all lucid dream related projects, so that's kind of cool. There's another Kickstarter for another book. This doesn't seem very exciting or new. It's just someone who wants to write more about lucid dreaming. I supported it, but other than him being very, very funny in the introductory video, I didn't see quite anything that's groundbreaking. But I'll put a link as well. You can check it out, and it's up to you if you want to support it, or if this sounds interesting to you. The part of me that wants to support it and has supported it is the one that wants to bring as many people's material out there, and help people find more methods, more ways, more insights into lucid dreaming. So by all means, I wish them good luck as well. On to the topic of the day. What I wanted to talk about today is basically lucid dreaming activities. And the reason is, so far I've had only 10 episodes, and I talk about a lot of things that are either general or a lot of stuff for beginners as well. I want to start sort of maybe switching back and forth between addressing the things that help achieve lucidity and addressing the things that you can do once you achieve lucidity. And again, there's no coherent sequence or structure to this podcast. It's just my random musings, I suppose. Of course, although as always, I do want to open it up and let if you have any suggestions or requests on what you want me to cover, by all means, let me know. And just like last episode and the whole supplements thing is due to popular demand is the reason I talked about it so early on and decided to dive into it, despite my lack of experience with supplements. I guess I decided to just try to gain experience in supplements. But I do want to start touching upon things that are relevant. There does seem to be these two sides of the lucid dreaming endeavor. It's induction and achieving lucidity, and on the other hand is, okay, you're lucid, now what? And I sort of divide it to two areas. Of course, there's the aspects of trying to stabilize a dream, and making the dream last a little longer, and there's various ideas and suggestions. I think I'm going to touch upon that some other time, but today I've been inspired to talk about what you actually can do in a lucid dream, or what you should try to do in a lucid dream. And I divide those into two general categories. There isn't really categories, but it's a way I like to look at it, because from what I read and people sharing their experiences on forums and on Reddit, this is kind of how I see things. So if it doesn't fit your mold, don't worry about it. But it's a way for me to just nicely categorize it in some way. And the first one is what I call the tourist, is all the a little more obvious things, the things you do, the first times or for a while in the beginning when you become lucid, which is awesome. It's exactly what you should do. I don't expect otherwise. It's things that I still do, obviously, like flying. No matter how long I think I would lucid dream and how many lucid dreams I will have, flying is the thing I still enjoy the most. And that's one of them. In fact, I think it's one of the inherent kind of impulses once we become lucid, is the chance to fly. And a few other things, other than, of course, sex seems to be at the top of the list for people, of course. And other things are like manifesting objects, trying to, envision and create an object out of nowhere, out of nothing. Things like teleporting, jumping really high. I don't know if you need to jump really high if you can fly, but again, it's just these little weird things. Controlling the weather. That's been one that I've done and has been a lot of fun. It's kind of, again, it's sort of like manifesting things, because when in the lucid dream that I've had, I was staying on a balcony and, I was looking outside. So I didn't see a particular type of weather happening at the time, but there were little clouds, and I sort of just, pulled them in and started doing the whole Wizard's Apprentice kind of thing. It's sort of conducting the weather into a storm and a frenzy, and that was a lot of fun. Things like diving underwater and breathing underwater. One that sort of crosses the border to what I call the resident, and this is the segment I want to focus on a little bit more because it's kind of cool, is going into space. I haven't actually succeeded doing that because, first part of the problem in becoming lucid is actually remembering what you wanted to do. So a few weeks ago, I was on vacation. I was actually sick as well. I don't know what's going on, but I did have a long dream, and after the end of the long dream, I realized that this hour-long struggle I've had just didn't make sense, and that made me realize I might be dreaming. Did a reality check, and yes, I was dreaming. And of course, as usual, I just start flying right away. But while I'm flying this time around, I once again remembered, hey, I always forget what I wanted to do when I'm lucid, and I just landed right away and tried to remember what I wanted to do. And by the time I actually managed to remember, I woke up. This was, of course, after what felt like, 5 minutes of lucidity and dreaming. But this is kind of the challenge. So the one time I did remember that I wanted to go into space, I flew straight up as soon as I became lucid. And I think the dream wasn't quite stable enough that it sort of broke apart, and all I saw was darkness. What I wanted to see is the Earth from above, is the Earth from space, and kind of experience it live, like how an astronaut would. But so that's why I think it's sort of important to both try to remember what you wanted to do and sort of mentally plan for it, as well as be able have enough lucidity and a high enough level of awareness to actually be able to, what I call be able to render like a computer simulation software. Have enough awareness to be able to render something that either you're not familiar with, you have no prior experience with, and that might take a lot of sort of computing power, so to speak, in order to render something like seeing the Earth from space. So I'm gonna actually dive into a few of these sort of out of the box things, and the reason is I wanna try to expand your mind a little bit as to what's possible in lucid dreaming. And this is just a few examples. I mean, it's really up to you to expand beyond that and really try to think outside the box. And that's part of the beauty of lucid dreaming, is that this is really a realm where possibilities perhaps are only limited by your imagination. There was a couple of threads on Reddit recently that were talking about this, like what are the limits? Can there be limits? And my point with the next little segment is not only that there might not be limits to what you can experience, but it can really go beyond what an experience in waking life can be. And here's a few examples. The first example, I think, really starts illustrating that. 360 vision. In waking life, you have, I think it's a little less than 180 degrees field of vision, where your eyes can see it at the end of the left side and the right side. It's kind of fuzzy and you can't really focus on the whole thing at once. But it's limited by the type of eyes we have, the way they're located on our face, and who knows, the, neurobiological connections and how it's all built inside. There are animals that can see far wider and with different type of vision, with multiple eyes and so on. But in a lucid dream, you can expand your vision, your field of vision, to see 360 degrees at once. And that sort of breaks out of your normal experience. So it's kind of tricky and kind of hard to do because you don't know how it even looks like or feels like or can be experienced, but it can. And if you try it a few times, you sort of kind of fall into it. You sort of kind of accidentally succeed, and it's a strange experience. But again, it breaks out of what you can do in waking, regular, good old life. And it's an interesting experience. Other things, perhaps some of them are more simple, but sort of still in the realm of, a strange and unusual experience, changing shapes, becoming a different person, looking different, changing gender, and taking it further, changing to an animal or an object, but not just visually, not just seeing yourself change into it. What I want you to try is to see how it feels to be something different. And here is again where I expand even further to what's possible. And I have two of my favorite examples. What would it feel like? And I do mean feel like, the actual experience of it. What would it feel like to be a drop of water falling from the skies during a rainstorm? Dropping on the ground, dropping on a leaf. How would that feel like? Think about it for a second. I know it's a little strange. I know it's a little, bizarre, but it's a new experience. It's a completely new experience. Because if you sort of really immerse yourself in that experience, you might experience how it could be like, or at least perhaps your imagination, how it would feel like to be a drop of water falling from the sky and splashing on something. Another one is a flower. What does it feel like to bloom, to grow out of the ground and, literally bloom into a flower? Again, I know I'm diverging on the sort of strange area of what's possible, but these kind of things really give you a new experience. Somebody said, can you manifest a new color? I haven't really succeeded in that, but and I don't know if it's possible because our minds, it's really hard to imagine, a new color, and maybe it has to do with the limit of the color spectrum, and that exists in the universe. I don't really know, but you can imagine how it is to be like, perhaps as a blind person, being born as a blind person, never have seen color before. Or never have seen anything before, and then one day seeing something you've never seen before. And you can take that experience and try to imagine. And that's where the sort of parallel I'm talking about in experiencing something like, being a flower that's blooming. And you can take it as far as you want. You can try to imagine any other thing you want. And again, it's really limited by your experience. Here's another example. That's a tricky one. Another one that I haven't succeeded, but I have a feeling it's possible, is synesthesia. Synesthesia is a bizarre experience. If you have never heard about it, it's a real phenomena that happens in life, where I don't know exactly what causes it. It's some either brain condition or some little crossed wires or something like that. But and it has, I know it's reported to happen to some people It can be induced by psychedelic drugs or other sorts of things that affect the brain. I've never had the synesthesia experience, but what it is basically is experiencing one sense through another. So, for example, it's the experience of hearing colors or seeing sounds. And it sounds strange, but that does actually happen to people in waking life. And they always have a hard time describing that because, how does that even feel like? What is that kind of experience like? But they do experience it. It's a known phenomenon. So, I don't know if people have figured out how to very particularly induce the experience of synesthesia. It sounds fascinating. And I think lucid dreaming might be an arena in which we can, intentionally conjure up an experience like that. So these are the kind of things where I want to plant the seed in your mind to try to break apart from the obvious, regular, good old experiences. And if you haven't had a lot of experience in lucid dreaming quite yet, and you had some, and you're still exploring the basic things, it does seem like more experience equals just more practice and more ability to do the things that are sort of out of the easy for our minds to create kind of segment. So do by all means starts from the I don't know, lower levels, but the basic things. Some people are just working their way through actually being able to fly without tumbling or being able to pick up speed and so on. And it's weird because you'd think in a dream you have no limitations. Why is there still, a struggle with some of these things? But, I do think it's tied to your level of awareness and level of lucidity. And again, as I mentioned before, I think lucidity is just, a segment, an increasing spectrum on the spectrum of awareness and spectrum of consciousness. And the higher you go, the more sort of awareness you have, the more control you have, the more ability you have. But these are the kinds of things I want you to think about and give it a try. Just have fun with it. And if you do something extraordinary and something that I didn't mention, please let me know. I'm always want to know new activities and new suggestions of what can be done, and give it a try. The next one I want to try, I've been watching the series Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson. Phenomenal, amazing, brilliant show. I am absolutely loving it. And if you haven't watched it yet, please do. It's fantastic. But what I want to try, and again, this might be difficult just out of the sheer sort of vision and scale and scope of it, is to fly through space in these amazing landscapes of galaxies and nebulas and all these black holes, and they create on the show such amazing scenery, and that's sort of something I want to experience, kind of flying through. I think that would be amazing. I think one day people will create that with virtual reality devices like the Oculus and so on, which I actually wanted to talk about in a different episode. I think there's a lot of correlation between the emerging virtual reality technologies and lucid dreaming. But until then, we have the ultimate virtual reality. So let's have fun with it. I hope this was interesting. As usual, if you have more ideas and more suggestions for lucid dreaming activities, please let me know. I'll share them. I'll pass it forward, as they say. And if I come up with new ideas, I will share those as well, of course. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I did. And